And Dr. Umar Johnson is with me on Power Talk this morning. For those who don't know, he's a certified school psychologist, a child therapist. He specializes at working with at-risk, violent, suicidal, and depressed African American boys and girls. He has blood lineage with Frederick Douglass, and if you do a Wikipedia search, you'll find out more about him. But he was, in a sentence, a great black abolitionist and orator. Umar focuses on learning disabilities and their effect on black children, and he has been helping schools and parents modify challenging behavioral patterns in their children that can lead to disruptive behavioral disorders and disorder diagnoses in black boys. Some of the themes, Umar, by the way, welcome to South Africa.
Thank you.
It is great to have you. Really intersect with what we talk about on Power often. And in fact, just this morning, we were talking about black liberation theology, challenging some of those ideas around, substitution of, preponderance or, being subjugated by a white Christian thinking at a certain time in South Africa's history as a blueprint for apartheid, for example. And we're dealing with all of those themes. So thank you very much for coming in. We'll talk about, some of the other aspects that you deal with in American society. But from your vantage point, what would you sum up as, what are your observations about the plight or the experience of a black child in society today? And why is that an important focus?
Well, I think one of the biggest challenges for African children in any European context, be it Johannesburg, be it New York City, be it London, England, is the fact that the education that our children get is inadequate. It does not prepare them to face the world that they're going to see after they leave school. The education is primarily one that prepares them to work, and it prepares them to work for their former enslavers and their former colonizers. So in many respects, the education is an education for further incarceration and further servitude. The average African child in a European context is not taught entrepreneurial science. They're not taught corporate investment. They're not taught stocks and trades and commodities. In essence, they are not taught the financial skills and sciences that are necessary to pull them and their families up out of poverty. In the opposite, we see that the education prepares them to perpetuate poverty, to perpetuate the underclass. And what we're seeing now in South Africa, in America, in Canada, in UK, all these places I visit regularly, we're seeing African people be turned into a permanent underclass by virtue of the inferior education that their children receive.
Well, what do you say in a South African context? I mean, I saw you greeting the class of 76 outside as they vacated the studio, where we have a government, which is a post-liberation government. I mean, it's a post-apartheid government. It's a liberation government.
Allegedly, it's a post-apartheid government. Having a black face in a high place does not mean that African people are experiencing a new political, economic reality. We have the same thing with President Obama in America. And if you look at the statistics of African people in America under black presidents, under black governors, under black mayors, under black legislatures, our condition actually has gotten worse. We've had more poverty since the Civil Rights Bill of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. We've had more incarceration of black men since the Civil Rights Bill. And we see a direct correlation between the rise of the black politician and the condemnation of the black ghetto. We get worse. And the reason we tend to get worse is most black politicians, whether it's South Africa, whether it's the UK, whether it's America, they are financed by white-run political parties. They're not financed by the black community. And this is not their fault. This is the community's fault. We have to evolve in our political maturity to understand that if we want the elected official to be loyal to the black community, to carry out a black agenda, we have to finance the campaign. You can't let white people finance a black man's campaign and then expect that black man to be loyal to black people.
The station is listened to a lot of people who are interested in interrogating a new perspective and in understanding why the filter needs to change and why the glasses need to change. When you talk about and you make the analogy or the comparisons between black politicians in places like the US, and you talked about Obama and you talk about our government, and you talk about actually the puppet strings being pulled by white capital in the background. In the South African context, from your vantage point, further,
it's no different. 87% of the industry here in South Africa is privately owned. Only about 14% is state-owned. So when you're an elected official in South Africa, whose agenda are you carrying out? You're carrying out the same agenda that was in place before 1994. The agenda is still a post-apartheid agenda. Apartheid is still here. Okay, the only way you can eliminate apartheid in South Africa is to redistribute the wealth of South Africa. That means Anglo Gold. That means all of the white corporations who unfairly, unjustifiably, and very inhumanely acquired their wealth. That wealth must be taken. It must be redistributed so everyone in South Africa has an equal opportunity of making a living for themselves. Giving me the vote does not make me equal. I only become equal when I have an equal opportunity to compete economically with the Dutch and with the British. You cannot allow the wealth of South Africa to remain predominantly in the hands of the Dutch and the British. Give us a flag, give us an anthem, and give us the vote and say we're equal. That's hypocrisy.
What are the consequences in your work that you see as a therapist with having access to information, as you say, and education that doesn't prepare you adequately for the life ahead? Would you say that that's directly related to incarceration levels, directly related to violence, domestic violence, or a lack of self, effectively, because that would be the first cause?
Oh, without question. I often say that the mother of all violence is miseducation. The father of all violence is economic castration. When you miseducate me, when you don't prepare me to compete in the society, and then after I get into that society, there's no economic opportunity for me, you've just created a desperate situation. You've created a situation where I now may have to turn to crime, and I may have to break the law in order to feed my children, in order to feed my wife, in order to feed my family. Education and economic opportunity are absolutely vital if you want to reduce crime. In fact, there is this perspective in many European contexts that criminals are born, that criminals commit crime because they want to commit crime. I totally disagree with that. Criminals are made by criminal governments. Criminals are made when people are not given an adequate education and are not provided with an economic opportunity. That's where the criminals are made. If you look at American society, up until 1940, most of the crime was being committed by Italian immigrants, Jewish immigrants, Irish immigrants. In the 1940s, the United States government upgraded Southern European immigrants to the status of white people. Before 1940, Irish Jews and Italians were not white. After 1940, they became white. And the United States government then gave them the police force. They gave them the fire department. And they gave the European Jews the civil service jobs in America's cities. And what happened was black people simply moved into the position that was formerly occupied by the Southern European Jews. You see, so what we find is people are often given opportunity. You see, when East Indians come to South Africa, they're given a certain opportunity. They have access to wealth. Europeans in South Africa have access to wealth. What am I talking about? When they come here, they come with a line of credit from their native land, from a bank in their native land who's willing to invest in their dream. And when they come to South Africa, if they don't have a line of credit from their native land, they can walk into a bank in South Africa and get that line of credit to realize their economic dreams. But look at the black people in South Africa. Can they walk into any one of these banks and get a line of credit for a respectable amount of money so they can build their own industry, build their own business? Let's be honest. We can send our children to college all we want in Johannesburg. We can send our kids to college all we want in New York City. We can send our children to college all we want in London. But what good is a college degree if there's no opportunity waiting for you after you get it?
Tandeka Mari says, hi, who's your guest? Hey, Batong, such powerful words. My manager is so interested in why I keep saying yes and clapping. I don't want to be selfish and keep Dr. Johnson all to myself. Let's open up those lines. Let us start with Ike in Pimville. I knew you would call in. You were looking forward to this interview this morning, but I want to keep all the comments as crisp as we can. Go ahead, Ike.
Hey, Sister Iman, you've got the best of the best, the last black man, the class of Khalid Mahomet. Good morning to you, Dr. Johnson.
Good morning.
And I want to hear your view on the Latinos or Hispanic who are black, who don't want to be black, because in South Africa we also have a colored population, and also touch the issue of white Jesus and the origin of Christianity, because some of us, we keep saying all religions are stolen from Africa, but black man is not free to accept the concept that Jesus is a mythology that was stolen from us. I'll be glad if you touch along there.
All right, Ike, thanks. Dr.
And I'm looking forward to see you probably in Soweto tomorrow. I heard that you're coming to Soweto tomorrow.
Are you going to Soweto, Dr. Johnson?
I have to see.
I will be at the Jabulani Technical High School tomorrow from 11 to 1, and then the University of Johannesburg Soweto campus from 4 until 7 tomorrow.
All right, I want to go take another call. Did you make a note of Ike's? Yeah, okay. Buzwe and Kilani, good morning.
My sister Iman, how are you?
My brother, I'm good, thank you. Welcome.
Iman, when I first heard the clip,
Oh, horrible line, Buzwe. I'm so sorry. We'll try to take your call again. Umar in Midrand. Good morning.
Yes, good day to the great doctor.
Thank you.
How are you, Dr. Johnson?
Peace, brother.
I'm all right. I saw you on Hidden Colors, and I was taken aback by the things that you've discussed together with Tariq. And are there chances that you might build your school in South Africa? Because I think there's a serious need for such a school that you're busy with. Because I remember you were raising funds for the school. And please just walk us on how that is going.
All right, Paul, thanks for that. Buzwe, we've got you back. Utumaleng, stand by. Hi, Buzwe.
Iman, can you hear me?
Yeah, got you. Go ahead.
Good. Iman, when I first heard the clip that you were playing from Dr. Johnson, I was going ballistic, okay? Firstly, from the fact that there's a radio station that was willing to play a clip like that. Power to power, I'm locked on power. Number two, I'm such a groupie of Dr. Johnson. Like, I see people going crazy over celebrities and that. Dr. Johnson is my hero purely because I discovered him a couple of months ago. And since then, my whole approach on life and Africa and my outlook on myself as an African in business and the role that I have to play in Africa's destiny has completely been just changed and escalated. But my third question I wanted to ask Dr. Johnson, where are you speaking? I want to come there. I need to listen to everything you've got to say.
Okay, he's just given you some of the venues. UJ tomorrow, Jabulani as well in the morning. I'll put them up on Twitter. In dealing with those questions, Dr. Johnson, perhaps also deal with this observation by Michelle. She says, we have enough voices spewing hatred and dissension between the races in this country. Do we really need another? How do you deal with questions that say, when you're big upping, black consciousness or black people at the expense of other people, that doesn't help the discussion?
Well, I think, number one, that there's a false comparison that's often drawn. When we talk about black power and black consciousness, there's the assumption that black power and black consciousness is the opposite of white power and white consciousness. Black consciousness is not the same as white consciousness. Black power is not the same as white power. White power includes an aspect of imperialism, supremacy, and a belief that other people are inferior to oneself. When we say black power, we're not saying that the Indian, the Arab, the East Indian, the Chinese are any less or deserve any less respect than we do. When we say black power, we're simply saying that we need power to be able to determine our destiny, just like all other groups of people have power to determine their destiny. African culture is not a racist culture. We have never been bigots. You can never find anywhere in the history of African people where we have wholesale enslaved or wholesale oppressed or exterminated or committed genocide against another people.
I suppose it goes to the narrative that says in a context where black people are so marginalized, the taking back of black consciousness and identity becomes something that you have to own and articulate in that context. When we hopefully arrive in a society where everything is equal, everything is good, and there's opportunity for every person in that society, we can divest of the notion of color or become colorless. But in a context where that is an issue, it has to be named over and over. All right, you want to deal with some of the callers? Yeah.
The one issue was about Jesus and the color of Jesus, and this is a conversation I have with black pastors all the time. In America, I speak in a lot of churches, and one of the issues that has to be dealt with is the image of God. When African people were colonized, one of the greatest weapons used against us was the image of the white Jesus, the Last Supper painting, which came to us by Leonardo da Vinci in 1482, which was the same year that the Cape Coast slave dungeon was built in Ghana, by the way. That image is still with us. It is going to be difficult for African people to raise their self-esteem, to reinvest confidence in ourselves, as long as our image of the deity continues to look like our historical enemy. No people whose image of God resembles the image of the oppressor has ever gotten free in world history. There's not a single example of a people worshiping the image of the oppressor who has ever achieved psychological liberation.
But, I would say that, in some people, and potentially this is, their mindset or the way that they approach things is not really the focus on that. It's on what the theology might espouse, where humanity is headed. And I know that you said you don't believe in a heaven, that, you have to work.
I do believe in a heaven.
You have to,
but I believe my heaven is on earth.
In the way that you described it in the clip, would say there isn't this fixation by some people, with the color of the way Jesus is or isn't depicted.
It's quite relevant. And the reason it's quite relevant is our brain stores all information and archetypes. Pictures and image, that's the language of the mind. There's no way you can say the color of Jesus don't matter when your subconscious takes that image and then your subconscious generalizes that image. If a black boy grows up in Soweto worshiping God as a white man, when he's old enough to interact with white people, subconsciously he will adopt a servitude posture in the presence of Europeans because he's already been conditioned. He's already been conditioned to see white people as godly.
All right. Let me know if you want to engage with Dr. Umar Johnson. He is my guest this morning. Let us talk to Itumeleng in Pretoria. Good morning.
Hi, thank you, Iman. Thank you, Doc. I think one of the issues that is important in addressing the whole issue is a continual dislocation of black bodies. Even the subjugation of black bodies as subject of study, or object of study rather. The context in which the African American continue to find themselves is similar to the context in which the British Africans continue to find themselves in. The mass incarceration of black bodies is an important aspect that needs to be dealt with in addressing the whole issue of how black bodies continue to be subjected to capitalist European structures. And thank you so much, Doc, for addressing such a pertinent issue in the context where in South Africa we are supposed to be believing and living under this illusion of a rainbow nation without addressing these very important issues.
Itumeleng, thanks for the call in Pretoria. There we go quickly to Power News headlines and traffic. I'm holding on to the doctor for a few minutes longer with your permission.
Sure. Thank
you. Continue after this. Stay with us. 24 minutes to 12. Whew, one can get carried away. I says, Steve Biko, Martin Luther, is that you? Matt says, thank you, Power and Iman, for bringing Dr. Johnson. Now that is Power. Let's go to the lines quickly. Let's go to Kibong in Polokwane. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Yes, is Dr. Umar Johnson there?
Yes, darling. Go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Johnson. I just wanted to say, I hope you enjoy your stay in South Africa, and one day, hopefully, you'll come to Polokwane. And I ask, before you go back to America, to enjoy a bit of our music, especially house music, and take it back with you. And, you know, let it show you our side of entertainment and how we also enjoy ourselves. And hopefully you also enjoy yourself. And particularly, I would like to just say, give a listen to somebody called Koja Akusa.
Okay, Umar, you've heard that. Thanks, Kibong in Polokwane. I haven't even been invited to come to Polokwane. How dare you? John in Menlyn, good morning.
Hi, good morning, Iman. Thank you for the doctor. This is quite wonderful. What I want to speak about, I think you raised a lot of important things. So the thing is, the doctor speaks truth to power. In terms of our own government, which is in power now, we are really calling it to account so that all these things that have happened during the apartheid are really dealt away with.
All right.
Now, what I want to look at is this thing that we need to look at the freedom. We are looking for freedom. A black person is looking for freedom. But we must first look for freedom within ourselves. What can we give to improve ourselves, to help each other? I think it's very important before we can point fingers to the others that when we get eventually what we get, that freedom, what happens? Because now you might find that we are so divided even amongst ourselves, you know.
All right, John, thanks for that.
That thing to look into ourselves.
You're welcome. Thanks, John. Let's go to Kay in Dainfern. Good morning. Kay, hi. Go ahead. Lost Kay. Mark in Garankuwa. Good morning.
Good day, man. I'm very fascinated about the talking about with Mr. Johnson. It's powerful. He's talking the real things. And we've been listening to these things for a long time. Listen to your program, Iman. Ike is also in the same topic. But now I just want to ask one question from Mr. Johnson. do we really, in South Africa's perspective, do you see anyone politically, all around, do you see anybody who's sharing his views, which are so powerful, which can help not only South Africa, but Africa at all?
All right.
Really in South Africa, do we have any person in particular?
Okay,
that
Mark.
we can really maybe look at.
Thank you very much for that. Basically, what he's asking is, do you see anyone who is reflecting what you're saying here? Are people buying the message that you're sharing?
Oh, yes. I mean, since I've been here, I've been very well received. All the events very well attended. I think there's a lot of people who understand that at this point in our sojourn as African people, the 21st century, we're at a serious crossroads where we can no longer accept neo-colonialism. We can no longer accept neo-imperialism. And I think African people all over the world are just sick and tired of white supremacy. And unfortunately, we don't only have to deal with white supremacy. We also have to deal with such things as East Indian supremacy here in South Africa and America. We have to deal with Mexican supremacy. What
is it when you say deal with? I mean, what does that mean? I mean, I can see, and then one or two people are, expressing a level of, what does he mean?
Okay.
Does he mean violence? Does he mean that people of other extractions don't have a place in this country?
I mean, control of the wealth and acquisition to opportunity to build the wealth. One thing that you've had in South Africa, just like we've had in America, you get an influx of another group of people who are put in as a buffer between the white power structure and the black underclass. So here in South Africa, they're bringing in the Chinese, they're bringing in the East Indians. And I see them. I see how they treat our people here. The East Indians treat black people in South Africa as if they're animals. It's the same thing in America with the Mexican
based
population.
on what is that observation?
Well, I can tell you, one of the last times I was here in South Africa, I went to Shaka Zulu's gravesite, and I was going past we went past the casinos in Durban. And so I'm walking down the street, and I'm wondering why all these East Indians are smacking me in the chest, literally smacking me in the chest. And so I'm saying to myself, can they not see who I am? And the brother who I was with say no. They said, we are expected to get out of their way when they walk. And the reason you keep bumping into them is they're expecting you to walk in the street when they're walking on the sidewalk. But not only that, since I've been here, I've been told by African people during this trip that East Indians will jump in front of lines. They will cut you off. They will talk to you like you're less than human, as if South Africa belongs to them. But again, where did that prerogative come from? It came from the white overclass who brought them in to serve as a buffer group, a second level of oppression against Africans. The same thing is going on in America, where they're using, let me say this, where they're bringing in Latinos and Mexicans in America as a second buffer group to prevent African people from getting an opportunity to rise. They become the new oppression.
But what do you say then? Because there are a couple of things that perhaps I find problematic with that. And the one is that when we create a worldview or a general perspective on something, but yet it's based on a level of, pardon me using the word, a myopia. I mean, it is your own experience. It is perhaps a collective experience of a few people. How does that formulate the narrative?
I agree with you on that. Let's
right?
take my personal experience out the way. Let's look at the history between East Indians and African people. They have never been supportive of African people. Even when Mahatma Gandhi was in South Africa advocating the case for East Indians in South Africa, he did nothing to help the Africans here, even when he was requested.
You would see a lot of, and since we're on the issue of Indians, and we call them Indians, we call that, that demographic Indian in South Africa, have been part of the liberation struggle.
Some of them have participated, just like some white people helped to destroy slavery in America. But we cannot excuse the racist behavior of an entire group of people just because a few of them were humane enough to assist the oppressed. Exceptions do not violate the rule. They just show that there can be variations of personality, but they do not violate the rule. East Indians in South Africa are racist, just like Latinos in America are racist, and they're given power to be racist by the white overclass. Can we deny that?
And you would say that it would be based on your experience.
History and experience. Show me any history where East Indians as a population have been sympathetic to the needs of African people, not just in South Africa. You have East Indians all across the continent. Where have they been a support for black people?
I'm talking to Dr. Umar Johnson. Engage with him. Bongani in Soweto. Good morning.
Morning, Iman, and His Excellency, Mr. Johnson.
All right.
Iman,
yeah.
Before I say anything, I want to call for the nationalization of Power FM because This station is the best radio station in this country. A kid in KwaZulu-Natal, Eastern Cape should hear people like you speaking. What I wanted to ask His Excellency, what can South Africans do to solve their problems? Because supremacy is the biggest fraud of the last 300 years or more of black existence. Because they come here, they treat us as if we are not from here.
All right, Bongani, and I think it's a question that segues with an earlier one, Umar, about what can black people do today?
3 areas of focus. Number 1, we have to discipline our spending habits. You cannot build political power while being weak economically. Even though African people in South Africa may struggle economically to make ends meet, we still have disposable income that we use on cell phones, disposable income that we use on designer clothing, disposable income that we use on entertainment. We have to take that disposable income and we have to concentrate it, which means we have to build black banks. We have to build black credit unions. We have to become our own source of economic empowerment. The state cannot do it. No matter how much President Zuma may want to help the black Africans of this country, it's going to be difficult for him to do that within the context of European power. We have to do it ourselves. So we got to get our money together. If there is no black dollar, there is no black power. Number 2, we have to start holding the black church accountable. We give too much money to the black church not to be getting anything in return. One of my biggest issues with the black church is that they don't hire black people. For you to collect that type of money every week and you don't hire none of our children, you don't hire any of our mothers, you don't hire any of our men, that's not acceptable. The black church has to become an economic empowerment instrument. If it's not going to empower us, then we need to get rid of it. The 3rd thing is the black bourgeoisie. White supremacy maintains and perpetuates itself by creating a class of Negroes, the black bourgeoisie. You have them here, we have them in America, they have them in Canada, in the UK, and this is a group of well-placed black folk whose job is to keep the masses in their place, and we have to be able to expose them for who they are. We don't have to be violent, we don't have to be disrespectful, but there needs to be a council, a tribunal where Africans who have not been loyal to the community are brought in question. Respectfully.
You saw my eyebrows go up.
Yes, ma'am. But we have to do this because it is the bourgeoisie that is the most dangerous aspect that controls the progress of black people.
But why can't people be free to do what they want to do if there is, as you say, the
because
emergence
all
and
change is done by a group. There is no individual change. All change is done by a group. Mandela may have led the fight against apartheid, but it was the masses of unnamed South Africans who brought apartheid to an end, not Mandela. No one man makes history. The people make history. So you cannot be free to do what you want.
Tell me more about this accountability you're saying. You know, that if the black bourgeoisie, as you in the way that you have described it, is not sharing the love, so to speak, or is not loyal to black people, or things that they want to buy, providing services and so on, this tribunal thing. I mean, the one thing people would be very wary of is people's right to trade with whom they want to, people's right to economically advance in the way that they want to.
We're not disagreeing with that. We're not disagreeing with that.
There doesn't have to be an Ubuntu-ness or a community-ness inbuilt into that.
No, there has to be a community-ness built into it, because as African people, we are communal people. We do things as a group. The lowest level of identity for us is the family. There is no such thing
but
as
for people who don't buy into it, it's their right not to.
But it's the community's right and obligation to hold individuals accountable who belong to that community, who are not working in its best interest. You cannot betray the Dutch and get away with it. You cannot betray the British and get away with it. And we have to stop letting disloyal Africans betray us without being exposed.
All right. So if they have to be held accountable,
yes.
How would they be held accountable?
The best way to do that, because one thing we do have to be careful of, and I think I hear this in your message, we just can't go around hurling accusations at people that are baseless. So you have to have a tribunal where people can be brought in and given an opportunity to explain their behavior.
And if their explanation doesn't suffice or doesn't satisfy,
then
what
they
happens?
will be considered a traitor to the people, and they will be excused from the community.
Excused from the what does that
mean? We will not affiliate with that person. You have to make examples to show people we're serious as African people.
But you're not suggesting violence, are you?
No, they don't have to be violent. All you have to do is discommunicate them. This person has been disloyal to African people. We no longer affiliate with them until they prove that they are worthy of membership back into our community.
So every black person, you're saying, has the obligation to serve the community.
Yes.
There's no choice in
There
it.
is no choice. If you are African and you belong to this family, you will be loyal to it or you will be excommunicated from it. And this is not a fantastic idea. European Jews have the same concept. That's why you don't betray European Jews.
All right, let me. People are dying to talk to you. Let's see what they have to say to you on that score. Thabo in Pretoria, and to all of our guests, please keep those comments as crisp as you can, so that we can take as many as possible. Thabo, go ahead. Good morning.
Yeah, morning, and the morning to the doctor. Actually, the doctor has stolen my words, but let me just be precise as I can. I wanted to re-emphasize what he just said at the moment, which you see the problem with this country and black people elsewhere. We must start investing in institutions rather than embellishments. That's the problem that we have in this country, and it is a problem again which I've seen again in America. It was Oprah Winfrey came all the way from the United States, came here, saw that there was a need to build a school. People lacked school here, and he took money from her own pocket and built a school to provide knowledge. But what we see with black people, all what they do, you find a person buys 7 cars, 8 cars, diamond rings, all these embellishments which are not necessary at all. If we can only build institutions in this country, industries in this country to employ our own, we would not have a problem. But unfortunately, black people, we invest in wrong things. All right. Okay, bye.
All right, Thabo. Lorika says, I don't like what I'm hearing. Are black people being taught to sponge off other people's hard work in terms of the black bourgeoisie? That's one of the comments there. Let's go to Solly in Rustenburg. Solly, good morning.
How are you, Iman?
Good, and you?
Yeah, I must say I'm impressed. I just want to ask the doctor, what is his view in terms of evolution? That clearly states that a black person is inferior to the white.
Evolution doesn't state that, from what I understand. My reading of evolution.
No,
Sonny.
it comes. Look at where we come from. It's an ape. Okay, just because of time, it's an ape. It's black person. Then the real person is white.
All right, I'll get
how you interpret it.
All right, I'll get Dr. Johnson's thoughts on that. Let's go to. Thank you for the call. Let's go to Thabo in Atteridgeville. Good morning. Hi, Thabo. Go ahead. Okay, Tabo's got the radio on. Pule in Alex. Good morning.
Hi, Iman. How are you?
Well, thanks, and you?
I'm well. Iman, I think I've just found a very interesting mentor. I've never knew of the doctor, but I'm very impressed with him. I also like to make an example which alludes to exactly what he says should be the solution to empowering black people. I'm sure you would be familiar with Scientology and its systems, whether it works or it doesn't work. But it's a group of people with a certain intention. And they also have principles and systems. I think it was last year where we saw a lawsuit by one of the big heavyweights in South Africa suing the church for certain things, and the church itself disavowing that individual from its community. So I'm in support of the doctor saying that we need to form communities of black power, to which we need to name individuals who are for black power and their methods and systems and symbology, and also name and shame, and also make those name and shame into an example for our generations to come, saying, you see that black person, do not follow that black person because that's a white person in a black, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm in full support of the doctor. I say, Viva Doctor, we are in support of you. My only challenge is, I would love to see this happen. I don't see people around who can do it. And that's a shame, Iman.
All right, that would be the challenge then, Pule and Alex, to the rest of the community. But we were talking just offline before we went on air in one of the breaks, Dr. Johnson, about the right to self-determination, that people have the right to do whatever they want to do as humans. They shouldn't be dictated to by the demands of the collective. They shouldn't be dictated to by society. They should develop themselves in every way as they see themselves or as in a future that they define for themselves. And what you're suggesting leans a lot on collectivism, on censure, on the role of the community. And while there are positives to that, because everyone benefits, the community rises as a whole. But when it comes down to being dictatorial about how people behave, don't you think that is problematic? And
Yes,
that takes
ma'am.
away that fundamental human right to self-determinate in your way.
Yes, I agree with you, but I don't think we should be dictatorial. Okay? African people, we function on consensus. We come together and we determine as a collective what we think is in the best interest of African people, not Dr. Umar Johnson. That's Eurocentric. Okay? We are horizontal people. We're not vertical as the European is. So we will not be dictating to anyone. But then the other question would have to be asked, isn't that what government do? You have a government in South Africa. They determine how you're going to behave. They determine how you're going to think. They're going to determine what you can do and cannot do. They're going to determine how much taxes you're going to pay. So to say that the community cannot impose upon his own certain bylaws of behavior and action, why can that not be possible when governments do it every day?
Yeah, those governments do it with the blessing of the people that vote them into power.
And that's the same way the community will behave, with the blessing of the people who live therein.
Just two things, because we're running out of time, and I want to take more calls. There's a range of tweets as well, but two things: black feminism and gays and gay and lesbian rights. You know, I was just reading a quote of where you were quoted as saying or referring to feminists as man haters. I couldn't find the exact statement around the homophobic or the gay rights statements, but these are two issues, and some of our listeners have also raised that, wanting to know, well, what is your stance on black feminism? Are black feminists okay? Do they get a tick in your book? Are you homophobic?
Okay. First of all, phobia is a fear. And homophobia, I'm a psychologist. Homophobia is not listed in the DSM or the International Classification of Disease.
Let's not go into the semantics. Into the commonly accepted way of... I will.
Hear me.
All right.
I'm saying that because where does the word homophobia comes from? It's not a clinical term. It was created to castigate anyone who still believes in traditional African family structure. Listen, if an African brother is homosexual, he's still my brother. I still love him as a brother. Is a sister is lesbian or bisexual, she's still my sister. I still love her as a sister. But for African people, as a Pan-Africanist, as a Garveyite, I must ask myself, in the long term, is this form of behavior conducive to where African people need to go?
But if it's not a choice behavior, if it is a human,
it's not a choice
natural
according to who?
behavior.
Because the narrative is that people are born homosexual or lesbian. That's the narrative.
But no, it's not the narrative.
No, it is the narrative.
Hold on, let me explain, Dr. Johnson, what I mean when I say that it's not the narrative. What I mean is that it is the experience. People will tell you, I am this way. You can psychoanalyze me all you want. I will continue to...
And there's people who will tell you that they were born to be murderers. There are people who will tell you...
Are you putting them in the same category?
No, what I'm saying is just because someone tells you that they were born something does not make it true. There's no conclusive scientific proof. Now I'm dealing with research.
But is there scientific proof for...
Can I make my statement?
Go ahead.
There's no scientific proof anywhere in the world that shows people are born this way. There is suggestions of evidence haven't been found. There's no proof. That's all I'm saying.
So what, in your view, as a doctor...
Not in my view, in my experience.
I'm asking a question. I'm saying, in your view, as a doctor and a psychologist, what accounts for people
who are
homosexual?
I will tell you. For African people, I cannot speak for others. Why? Because behavior is culturally determined. I cannot tell what white folk should or should not be doing. I don't belong to that reality. But for us as a people, there's almost no history of homosexuality in pre-civilization Africa. You cannot find it in Nile Valley.
What kind of evidence would there be? What kind of evidence would make you believe
it should be discussed? It should have been.
But I'm asking you the question.
I'm
You're
giving
saying
you the
there's
answer.
no evidence.
There's no evidence of homosexuality in Nile Valley culture here on African
And what
continent.
would be the proof of that?
The proof is there is no conversation, no literature. We come from a people who wrote everything. There's no evidence of it. Now, it's amazing how you'll tell me to find evidence of there not having been homosexuality in pre-antiquity Africa, but you can't find me evidence of people having been born gay. So you're using a double standard.
No, I'm not using a double standard. For me, it's not a question. To me, if somebody comes to me, it is their human right to express and to live and to be as they want to be.
Without, and I can't control their behavior. I'm not trying to control their behavior.
Without being dismissed, Dr. Johnson, as having been programmed in a certain way or taking on Eurocentric behaviors.
But that's your opinion. That's your opinion. Here, Let me go back to what I said.
It's not my opinion.
It's your opinion. It's your opinion.
Let me explain why it's not my opinion. It's not my opinion because too often we see whole communities of people who are vilified, who are marginalized, who are ostracized because of this same mentality.
No, I think a lesbian or a homosexual has a choice. No. I believe they have a right to live. They have a right to go to school, to work. Yes,
and to love who they want to love,
and
in the way that they want to love.
Listen to me. There's not enough black men in South Africa right now for black women to get married to because of the war against black men.
What if black women don't want to get married?
Oh, so you're trying to tell me most sisters in South Africa don't desire a husband? Really? That's been a basic human desire since the beginning of time.
I can't say most.
Okay.
I can't say most in the same way that you can't because you haven't polled every black sister in South Africa.
I don't have to poll them, but I do know that African people have been on the earth for 2 million years, and as long as we have been here, we have been getting married. I do know that.
I'm going to let you have the last word because you are my guest.
No, but
the conversation is by no means over. Dr.
No,
Umar
it's not.
Johnson,
Let's finish
thank you very much for talking to us today. It is 12 o'clock. Jeremy Maggs is standing by in the safety of the wall of the studio.
Now we're talking.